Excuse me. Hello, this is Josh Gibson. I am the drama teacher and speech teacher at Claremore High School. I'm in my second year there. We had a very brief chapter on rhythm, tempo, and pace, and it was very insightful, although it was brief. And then on chapter 20, we had problems that directors may face. So with the first chapter, rhythm refers to sounds, the series of sounds, so words, music, sound effects, footfalls, door slams, so that all creates a rhythm. I'm thinking about the rhythm that was created when I directed Antigone for one-act play competition, and I really felt like that with the chorus and the major characters that we really had a great amount of rhythm. We didn't have a lot of empty space. A lot of moments were filled with sound of the voices talking at once or interacting with one another. Tempo is how fast, slow, or moderate that the tempo of the play goes. You want to have variation with that, of course. And pace is shifts in tempo. So that was I always thought of pace was how fast it was going, but pace is the shift in tempos and the use of pauses. I think of playwrights like Harold Pinter and Samuel Beckett that write in pauses, and using that as an actor. It can be kind of an encumbrance when you first encounter these pauses, like how do you fill that space, but with a skilled director, understanding the characters, understanding the through line, those pauses can become very powerful. And in the second chapter, chapter 20, there were a lot of different problems that I have not experienced, but it was very helpful to read about them and see what some possible causes were. It seems that the bottom line with all of the different problems you might face as a director is just keep going back to the drawing board. Keep going back to warm-up techniques and rehearsal improvisations and ways to make it new for the actor. If it's seeming stale, make sure you're still setting those goals like you were at the beginning. Okay, I want you to work on this in scene 3 and carry that on to scenes 4 and 7. And let's work on this character aspect for this character. And if you give specific tasks to each actor in the production, they're going to feel more engaged and more likely to interact with you in the next rehearsal. It said in the example for fixing the problem of lack of seeming stale, give them homework. Give them something to work on outside of rehearsal to bring back in for the next time. If actions are blurred, break down the action. If it just seems like they're just acting in generalities, like break down their entrance. From the first moment to the crossing across the stage to sitting in the chair to their first line of dialogue. Like it's all interconnected, but just break it down for them speech by moment by moment. The actors making a large role small. I did not experience this with Antigone, but you have all these big characters. You have Antigone, Ismene, her sister. You have Creon, who is pretty much the main character in Antigone. He's on stage the most, has the most dialogue. I didn't really have a problem with them making the role too small, but I could see where that could happen, where they're trying to act realistically, and the role calls for a more dynamic portrayal of hubris or some flaw. So you got to get the actor outside of themselves. In the instance of Antigone with Creon, think about you are king. You make the rules. What you say goes. So if you say it, they have to command. The actor is not going to know that same sensation. So getting them to use their dramatic imagination instead of just being married to their own different ways of interpreting a character from their own personal perspective can get that bigger performance out of the large role. When characters are seemingly on stage, they're playing to the audience instead of playing in the moment. They seem aware of their positioning. Just try awakening their creative imagination to the physical environment. Give them a challenge. Help them establish physical contact with their environment. And then lastly, it talks about benign neglect. And that's where you know there is something that's not quite right, but the actor might be kind of aware of it and working on it. So instead of bringing it to the fore, you have this benign neglect where you let them work on that problem. Lastly, the Harold Clurman quote, it was brilliant. What do you do then after you've realized you didn't have a good production and you put everything into it? And Harold Clurman says, I forgive myself. I kind of had to do that with Antigone this year when I got the 3 different adjudications and 2 out of the 3 were like, anger's not only expressed with yelling and raising your voice. And I totally didn't see that in my production. I thought I had a lot of variation, but it came across to 2 out of 3 judges that way. So I just, I did my best with the production and we did a good show. So at this point I have to just forgive myself for the things that I missed and go on to the next production.